The first pre-release is out for Minecraft 1.20.5, which means that this is the last big round of news, including new advancements and tweaks to experimental trial chambers. But from this point on, we should expect to mostly see bug fixes until 1.20.5 is out. This also means the regular snapshot cycle is no longer in effect, so we may see pre-releases on other days than Wednesdays. My name is Sliced Lime, and I'm here to take you through the many changes of pre-release 1. Let's start with some experimental changes, where tipped arrows from the new experimental potions can no longer be bought from Fletchers without having the experiment on. And the potions themselves now can't be brewed without the experiment on. The trial chambers have been given another update, with Chamber 6 now being called Assembly and now comes with new variations. The Eruption Chamber has had some fixes to stop tough bricks spawning in the air and to give it more light, and all chambers now have a new trap dispenser style. Some broken jigsaw connections in the corridors have been fixed, and the trial chambers are now more consistently buried in solid matter underground. In ominous trials, mobs that can use equipment now have a higher chance of spawning with enchanted armor and weapons, and no longer have any chance of dropping that equipment when killed. When projectiles spawn above entities, players are now chosen 50% of the time, and projectiles spawn more accurately above the chosen entity. The new effects have been tweaked and fixed as well. Let's start with weaving. The effect of being able to move through cobwebs now applies to players as well as other entities, and instead of being unaffected, the movement reduction is now 50%. When an entity with weaving dies, 2 to 3 cobwebs now spawn more consistently than before, and can also replace replaceable blocks like short grass. This effect now also obeys the mob griefing game rule. With the oozing effect, slimes will now only spawn within a 5x5x5 block area around the killed entity, and only up to the entity cramming amount. For the infested effect, the chance of 1 or 2 silverfish spawning when the entity is hurt is now 10%, up from 5%. The silverfish now spawn at the center of the entity's bounding box and get flung out the way they are facing. Think of it as if the entity is barfing up silverfish. The entity now also has to actually take damage for the silverfish to spawn, so damage-less attacks like snowballs no longer trigger the effect. Some tiny inconsistencies in the textures of the vault and the trial spawner have been adjusted, and the new Raid Omen effect texture has been tweaked to look less like the programmer art evoker. The tooltips for the flow and guster banner patterns now show up correctly, and the subtitle for the Raid Omen sound effect now renders properly. Fighting a breeze in a boat no longer negates all the damage from wind charges, and wind charges no longer have the capacity to harm the Wither in its melee-only phase, or the Ender Dragon in its perched phase. Let's talk about the Mace. The Mace can now only be used for 1 smash attack for each fall. Its damage now resets on the first hit, so hitting multiple targets in a row during one fall no longer causes ever-increasing amounts of damage. Spam clicking with the Mace no longer deals very high damage. And maces now break decorated pots like other tools and melee weapons. Lots of fixes have also been made to the Windburst enchantment. It can now only be obtained from the vaults. Previously it was also available from villager trades, the enchanting table, and a random other chest loot and fishing treasure. The Windburst effect now only triggers on smash attacks and requires the mace to not be on cooldown. Hitting the Ender Dragon or a non-living entity like a boat while flying in creative mode no longer pushes you upwards. And speaking of boats, hitting boats or minecarts no longer creates a significantly stronger wind burst than normally. And hitting a wind charge also no longer creates very high upward momentum. There's a new experimental advancement in this version, Revaulting, granted for unlocking an ominous vault with an ominous trial key. Speaking of advancements, there are also 4 new non-experimental advancements available in all 1.20.5 worlds. Isn't it Scute? For brushing armadillo scutes off an armadillo with a brush. Snippet, for using shears to remove the armor from a wolf. Good as new, for repairing wolf armor. And the whole pack, for taming 1 of each wolf variant. This one is a challenge advancement which awards 50 experience when completed. In other gameplay news, a bug has been fixed with old villagers in upgraded worlds not being able to trade. When the Update 1.21 experiment was off, Bad Omen could never be removed, even when it started a raid. That is fixed in this version. Cast fireballs and wind charges if the experiment is on can now be redirected in melee even if hit with an attack that deals no damage. If you jump immediately after landing when hit by Sonic Boom, you no longer keep your vertical momentum. and it is now possible to fly in creative mode, even inside 2x2 or larger bubble columns. In visual news, area effect clouds from creeper explosions now have the correct tint on their particles. In interface news, the action bar text now uses the appropriate text background based on the text background setting, and there's a new language, Vyasa. In addition, lots of fixes have been made for stability problems, including fixes for many crashes. This version also upgrades to Datapack version 39, with plenty of changes for predicates, particles, loot, and more. If you're also interested in those changes, keep an eye on the channel for a separate video about that. That's it for this snapshot. My name is Sly Slime, thank you for watching, I'll see you next time.